All right, I have exhausted my list of questions. So now if we can hear from the students, that would be great.
Now that we are sufficiently terrified, here's what I'm going to ask. Guys, we're going to move to the questions as quickly as possible. Here's how this is going to work. We've got the two mics. One in the center aisle here, one in the center aisle in the balcony. When I point to you, you're up. Please tell us who you are, where you're from, what you're studying, and then please frame your question in the form of a question. All right, we good? Let's start in the balcony. Oh, hold on.
Hold that mic a little bit closer.
Is it on?
Yeah, good.
All right, let's.
Number 6, please.
Okay, now we're good, right?
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you both so much for being here tonight. I'm Lily Bethay. I'm a first year in the Undergraduate School of Foreign Service. I was wondering, while I think we can all agree that we have concerns over the future of AI and how it threatens the job market, I was wondering what you believe the potential positives of the future of AI are, and if you think that it may potentially create new jobs in the job market, and if so, what those might look like.
Okay, that's a great question, because we've sort of left that out in this discussion. And if it was just all these nasty risks we've talked about, then the rational thing to do would be just stop developing AI now. But we can't do that. It's not like nuclear weapons. With nuclear weapons, they're only good for destroying things. AI has a wonderful upside. It's going to make healthcare hugely better. It's going to make education hugely better. We know that a private tutor allows you to learn about twice as fast as a classroom, and AI is going to be even better than that. It's going to make a very good tutor because it's going to see millions of kids like you and know just what you don't understand. So that's why we're not going to stop it. It's going to be wonderful for lots of things. It's going to predict the weather better. It's going to, in almost any industry where you need to predict things, it's going to have better predictions, and so it's going to make the industry more efficient. Just trivial things like how long a patient's going to need a hospital bed for. If you can predict that better, you can make the hospital beds go further. You can decide whether to discharge them so another patient can get that bed, or whether that's a bad idea because they're likely to come back again if you discharge them too soon. It can optimize everything and make it more productive, and that's great, but for the fact that it will replace a lot of jobs. But I think it's very important that we understand there's a huge upside to AI as well. And in a decent society, increasing productivity should be good. If the wealth was shared equally between everybody, that would be a great thing to do. In terms of creating new jobs, I don't believe it's going to create as many new jobs as it replaces. It'll create jobs like prompt engineer. How do you prompt this chatbot to get the best out of it? But I don't believe there'll be nearly as many new jobs created as it destroys, as it replaces. Although good economists like Darren Acemoglu aren't sure about this. They think maybe it will. So there's uncertainty here. And one thing to bear in mind when discussing AI in the future is everything's hugely uncertain.
Hi, thank you both for being here. My name is Dia. I'm a senior in the college, and I'm originally from the Mississippi Delta, which is a rural part of Mississippi. So Mississippi has signed quite a few contracts with major companies like Amazon and Exxon to build AI data centers, funneling billions of dollars for economic development. This is more of a policy question. How do we balance this need for economic development, especially in rural America, with these energy and environmental concerns of citizens?
It's a real concern. And I think, as you know, communities all over the country are rejecting these data centers for a couple of reasons. Number one, as often as not, their electric bills are going to soar. And communities in rural areas are saying, why am I paying an increase in my electricity bill in order to lose my job? So They're rejecting that. And also, as you indicate, it's not just enormous consumption of electricity, it's also consuming a great deal of water. So there are real environmental impacts associated with data centers that I think communities all over the country are responding to. And what we are seeing is many of these very, very large corporations are trying to bulldoze their way through. I mean, they're a lot more powerful than some local city council, you know. So it is a real political issue right now. You're seeing governors in Virginia, for example. I think it was an issue in the campaign. We got to do something about rising electric rates because of these data centers. So from an environmental perspective, which we had not discussed, it is a very big issue.
I have a comment about that too. They should be building their data centers on Hudson Bay. On Hudson Bay, you could build more hydro power stations. There's still untapped rivers there. And the problem is you have to build the transmission lines. But if you put a data center next to a hydro power station, you don't need any transmission lines, because the only thing you need to send out is information. And information doesn't require a lot of energy to send out. So a natural thing to do is have a hydro plant on Hudson Bay with a data center next to it. And I had a long conversation with Trudeau about this, and he was very interested in that, but it never happened.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, back up to the balcony.
Thank you very much. I'm Luciana Valadares. I'm a faculty here teaching at the School of Foreign Services, a course on AI and human rights in Latin America. And my question is on the international governance. Could you share any reflections of what would be an ideal governance model? And if there are any limits that should be in place in your view, including on new technologies in the military domain, which was a topic that you touched upon today. Thank you.
So for a long time, I've been against lethal autonomous weapons. That is, weapons that decide who they should kill or maim by themselves. The US military says there will always be human oversight. But to begin with, they said that wouldn't happen. Then they said there'd always be human oversight. And what that means is there'll be oversight of the policy, but you have to make the decisions too fast. So these things will be deciding who to kill and maim. And I thought it was just a clear-cut case that we should forbid that. We should have Geneva Conventions against that, which probably wouldn't come into place until very nasty things had happened. I now think it's a bit more complicated, having talked to Eric Schmidt, who used to be the chairman of Google. He's much more right-wing than me, so we disagree on more or less everything. But, for example, he thinks Kissinger's a good guy, and I think Kissinger's a bad guy. I like the Rolling Stone obituary for Kissinger. But he made me realize, if you look at Ukraine now, the Russians are using drones. Should the Ukrainians just say, we're not going to use drones? We're not going to use drones that can drop grenades on people? It's more complicated. I mean, it would be great if we could get international treaties. And we have got international treaties for chemical weapons that have basically worked. The Russians aren't using chemical weapons in Ukraine. A few people have broken those treaties. Saddam Hussein dropped chemical weapons on the Kurds. There's some evidence that Winston Churchill dropped chemical weapons on the Kurds. It always seems to be the Kurds that it gets dropped on. But basically they've held, and maybe we can get international treaties like that that'll hold for lethal autonomous weapons. But I think very nasty things will have to happen first.
I would just add to that that in a world of massive inequality, AI and robotics is going to be just exacerbate that inequality. The wealthy countries will be able to have tools that poor countries in a million years won't have.
Hey, thanks for the question.
Hello, Dr. Hinton and Senator Sanders. It's an honor to ask you guys questions today. I'm Chakrapani Gadlavaletti, a sophomore in the School of Foreign Service, proudly calling Lexington, Kentucky home. And Senator Sanders, you've been my model since middle school, so it's an incredible honor to see you and ask you a question. One thing I'm studying here in Georgetown is global public health, and I've been very concerned about how, especially here in the United States, health insurance companies could abuse AI, in particular to deny healthcare coverage, especially to those who need it. first of all, could you elaborate on like abuses that like healthcare insurance companies could use using AI? What should the government do to regulate these abuses? And finally, do you anticipate single-payer systems like NIH or Medicare for All to potentially minimize these abuses?
To answer your question, it is totally absurd and embarrassing that the United States of America, the richest country on earth, is the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. The function of insurance companies is not to provide health care, it is to make a lot of money, and they do make a lot of money. Drug companies make an enormous amount of money. And it saddens me very much that we have a system which everybody recognizes is broken, it is dysfunctional, it is enormously complicated. And by the way, not only are we the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people, we're spending twice as much per capita as other countries. So I think the answer to your question is health care is a human right. We guarantee health care to all people, young, old, rich or poor.
Can I add one thing to that? It is true that healthcare companies can abuse AI to decide not to insure people who are going to get sick, which is what they'd like to do. However, I think the benefits that we're going to get from AI in healthcare are a bigger effect than that. I think we'll get huge benefits from AI reading medical scans, AI designing new drugs, AI being able to take all the data about a patient, their genome, all the tests that are done on them, all the tests that have been done on their relatives, and use that information to make better diagnoses. We've already seen that. Microsoft had a system that could diagnose better than doctors, quite a bit better, I think. So it is true that any powerful technology like this will be abused by people trying to make more money, but overall the effect in healthcare, despite that, I think will be very positive.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Back up to the balcony.
Hi, my name is Zach. I'm an undergraduate senior, and I'm studying human science. And I was just wondering, have you seen the movie WALL-E? Because I feel like, as you've been saying with AI and all the potential benefits, why does it not make sense for us to invest all of our money, all of our time into developing really, really powerful super AIs so that they can just take care of all of our problems? And in the future, we don't have to worry about things like working and jobs.
Okay, let me answer that. If we had a political system that was run for the benefit of the people, that's exactly what we should do. We should have very powerful AI that does everything for us. We should be very careful to design it so it cares more about us than it does about itself. I've been pushing this idea of maternal instincts. If you look around for how can we coexist with something smarter than us? Well, look around to see where does a less intelligent system thrive in the presence of a more intelligent system. There's only one place, and that's a baby and a mother. The mother cares more about the baby than she does about herself. The baby thrives. We need AI with maternal instincts. We don't know how to engineer that, but we're still in charge, and we should be able to engineer that. That's part of the puzzle. If we can engineer that, and we can have a political system which aims to help all of the people all of the time, it would be great. But that's not the political system we've got in most places. We've got authoritarians. We have systems in which some people see most of the other people as mugs to be exploited. They're a market. We need to deceive them into buying our useless products, which fail as quickly as possible so we can sell them more. In that kind of system, it's very bad to develop AI and put people out of work. But there is the hope that we could get a system where it is used for the benefit of everybody. A system like one big family, that's what it should be like. So it's not just totally out of the question, but this is kind of, I feel like I'm sort of 16 again and thinking about how politics ought to be. It's very idealistic.
Well, I think you've raised a very important question. And I think you're saying, hey, this is great. AI is going to come. You don't have to do this job. You don't have to do that job. Really, really good. Do you think that is what Mr. Musk and Mr. Bezos have in mind? Do you think that's why they're spending hundreds of billions of dollars to say, hey, isn't this great? We could lower the work week. We can guarantee healthcare, high-quality healthcare to everybody. We can expand life expectancy. We can solve global warming. Man, let's go do it. That's what we want to do. Do you think that's what these guys have in mind?
Probably not.
Probably not. And what Dr. Hinton was saying is exactly the issue. Are AI and robotics inherently bad? Absolutely not. If they are used, for example, you are already seeing some of the large unions, like the UAW, negotiating with the car companies and saying, you know what? Our productivity is going up. We want a 32-hour work week. Needless to say, the companies were not sympathetic. But if we could lower the work week, if we could do away with dangerous jobs, improve health care for all, it's a positive. But again, I get back to the point that I started. Understand, the people who are pushing this transformative revolution are the richest people in the world. They are not staying up nights worrying about working people. In my view, they want even more wealth and they want even more power. So the struggle is not whether AI is good or bad, it's who controls it and who benefits from it. That is really the fundamental issue in my view.
All right, thank you. Back down here to the floor.
Hi, my name's Nick. I'm a sophomore studying government from Florida. This is a question for Senator Sanders. Thank you for being here. Obviously, we've heard a lot of talk about the AI bubble, and with that, the impending burst that's probably going to eventually happen with the AI bubble. And indeed, you've heard people like Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, say he expects the government to bail out AI industries. You know, this is kind of a two-part question, but firstly, you know, should a bubble burst occur, how do you see Congress responding to that? And secondly, are there similarities to the AI bubble that you're seeing with past bubbles, like the dot-com bubble? Does it worry you that this bubble burst will be worse than those previous
Sure,
ones?
it does worry me. You know, getting back to a point that, you know, Dr. Hinton raised is, in my view, I don't want to put words in his mouth, you have a fairly corrupt political system. So when Wall Street went under, they knew what they were doing. They knew that they were investing in fraudulent mortgages, et cetera. They went under, they caused a massive recession, and they went to the government and said, yeah, we made huge amounts of money, we were crooks, we were dishonest, bail us out. Because if you don't bail us out, we're too big to fail. We'll take down the whole economy with us. If that was true then, I suspect it is a lot truer right now. But the gumption of people who are multi-billionaires, who are making money hand over fist, says, oh, by the way, if we fail, you, who are one of the 60% of American people living paycheck to paycheck, we would appreciate your bailing us out. All right? So that gets to another issue. The broader issue is how we create a government that represents ordinary people, not just dependent on the campaign contributions of billionaires. And that is the broader political issue. How do we create with a small d, a democratic society where government works to protect the interests of all people, where AI and robotics are a positive, not a negative, for working people? That's the issue that we've got to address.
Thank you. All right, thanks. Back up to the balcony.
Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a senior in the School of Foreign Service. I'm studying science, technology, and international affairs. Really quickly, I want to thank Dr. Hinton for your decades of tireless work, even through all the AI winters and everything. But now for the question. You alluded earlier to the debate between the, connectionists and the symbolists, and kind of famously in the beginning, Microsoft dismissed the connectionists and some of your work. So I was wondering if you think right now in the scientific field, do you think there's a similar type of neglect or dismissal of any school of thought for not policymakers, but anyone in the field? Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm not the guy to ask because the approach I pushed is currently winning. The people to ask, it's quite possible there'll be a very different approach. And the people to ask are young people who think what I'm doing is wrong, but I'm going to stick with what's working.
Okay.
Sorry, that's not a very good answer, but there may well be radically different approaches out there, but it's not old men who are going to push them.
All right, thanks. Back down here.
Hi, my name is Charlotte. I'm a junior in the college studying government and psychology, and I'm from Connecticut. And one concern about AI that we haven't yet discussed today is its ability to spread misinformation, specifically like via voice replication, accurate videos, etc. And this information will absolutely worsen our already very deep and disturbing political divides. So I was wondering what you would propose as policy to address this issue, or what you foresee being put on the docket to deal with.
Okay, I have something to say about that. Many people suggest we should get AI to recognize things like fake videos. That's never going to work. The first AI systems that generated really good images were called generative adversarial networks. And the problem is, if you have an AI that can recognize that a video is fake, then a generative AI can look inside that other AI and figure out how to generate things that it will think are real. And so you get this sort of arms race between a discriminative AI that says whether they're fake or not, and a generative AI that's getting better and better at fooling the discriminative AI. And that's how you got very good images with generative adversarial networks. So there's no future, I believe, no long-term future, in getting AI to recognize fakes produced by AI, because you can always make better fakes then. The way to do it is to have provenance. So a few hundred years ago in Britain, there were political pamphlets, and the government insisted that every pamphlet that was printed had the printer's name on it. Because if you had the printer's name, you could find out who paid the printer, and you could find out the provenance of the pamphlet. And that's because the printing press was a limitation. At least for political videos, there's a scheme suggested to me by Jan Tallinn, who's, I should mention Jan Tallinn, he's invented Skype with some other people, sold it to Microsoft, he's a billionaire. He's used a lot of his money for AI safety. Many, many AI safety groups are funded by Jan Tallinn. He's taken it very seriously. He suggested you do the following. Every political video, you have a QR code at the beginning. The QR code takes you to a website. Websites are unique. If that is the website of the political campaign, and on that website there's the identical video, you know it's for real. If not, you know it's not. And your browser can do all that work. Your browser can take the QR code, go to the website, check it's the website of that campaign, check if there's an identical video. So it should be possible for your browser to tell you that this is a genuine video for that campaign, at least. You have to go for provenance, not recognizing fakes. I once gave this argument to people from the New York Times who thought that was great, because I believe news that comes from the New York Times, the BBC, the Guardian. People I believe will get two sources, at least two sources, and won't just make stuff up. Occasionally get stuff wrong, but it's all going to be done by provenance, I believe, in the long run.
Okay. Well, as somebody, I am told by my staff that I was on television selling, on the internet, selling some insurance policy. Sounded and looked very much like me. So it is a real issue. You just worry that, 2 weeks before an election, and they're very good at this stuff. You can have somebody sounding like somebody saying crazy stuff which can impact an election. So it's a very big issue, and I think it's got to be dealt with.
And I actually think we should use inoculation. That is, before an election, people should put out very convincing fake videos in favor of Trump, fake videos against Trump. And at the end of the fake video, they should say, that was a fake video. What they're trying to do is make you understand that fake videos will be out there. And it's like inoculation. They give you one that's labeled as fake so you can get used to dealing with it.
Like media literacy, yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, back up to the balcony.
Hi, my name is Ryan Lee. I'm a senior studying international politics and journalism. I wanted to talk about the Department of Education with the administration taking further steps to dismantle it today. Dr. Hinton, you earlier mentioned the importance of federal grants in fields like AI. So I wanted to ask you what you think the future of especially money in AI is with the federal government taking a further step back. And to you, Senator Sanders, this is something that can only officially done by an act of Congress. So how do you expect Congress's role to be seen here, and how do you expect them to react?
So, I think if you really wanted to make America weak, what you would do is you'd attack the research universities and you'd cut off funding for basic research. It won't have an immediate effect. So if you look where all this deep learning came from, it came from long-term funding of basic research over many years. If you cut off that money, it's like eating the seed corn. In 10, 20 years' time, America will be way behind China. So what the Trump administration is doing is precisely what you'd do if you wanted to make America weak. So that's the first point. The second point is, well, you have a Secretary of Education who thought that AI was A1, and there's a video where she's calling it A1, which is kind of extraordinary because that means for a long time she must have thought that AI was A1. She didn't go to university. I think maybe she doesn't understand that AI was the initials for something, artificial intelligence. She got confused with the fact that a 1 is a bit like an I. I don't know. If you've got a Secretary of Education like that, I don't know what to say.
Well, let me just say this, that of the panoply of problems facing this country, education is at the top of the list, I think. Right now, in the richest country in the history of the world, we have a child care system which is basically dysfunctional. So 0 through 4 are the most important years of development, intellectual and emotional development for a human being, and yet we have people who are working with those kids who make less than a McDonald's worker, which says a lot about how we not only regard education, but how we regard our children. That's number one. Number two, some of you may be familiar that international exams, reading, science, math, we do very poorly compared to other countries around the world. We are having a very difficult time, for good reason, attracting the best and the brightest to go into public schools right now. Being a teacher is an enormously difficult job. We're not giving teachers the support that they need. As many of you are aware of, the cost of higher education is outrageously high. Many of you are going to be graduating with tens and tens of thousands of debt. Go to medical school, go to graduate school, it's going to be even more than that. So getting back to Dr. Hinton's point, if we in fact want to make America great, it is not an exaggeration to say that we want the best educated people in the world, that we prize education, that we respect educators, and that we want to make sure that every person in this country has the ability to get all of the education they need to succeed in life. That's good for them, that is good for the country. But we are moving in every direction in exactly the wrong way. My friend, Mr. Mondani, who is going to be mayor of New York soon, he has been attacked because he thinks that in New York City, child care should be free. What a radical idea. We give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1%. We spend $1 trillion on the military, but the idea that we have high-quality, free child care, or God forbid, in America, we do what was the case 70 years ago and make our major public colleges and universities tuition-free, that's considered to be radical. So I think we need to take a deep breath and say that if we really want to be a great nation, we've got to respect education, we've got to adequately fund education, and we've got to make sure that educational opportunity is available to all.
All right, thanks for the question. All right.
I would like to just add something to that. If you look when America was great, in the 50s and early 60s, America was developing very fast and people could afford 2 cars and a home and things like that. The tax rates on the rich were something like 70% at that point. That's what you need. You need taxes to fund these things, and you need to stop the rich evading taxes. It's just crazy. They can easily afford to pay the taxes. They'll end up with only a few billions to dispose of. You don't need that much money.
All right. We are running low on time, and I always hate to say this when we've got long lines, but we've got time for one more student question. So we'll come down here
All the
for that
pressure's
one.
on me then.
Apologies to the rest of you, especially you at the mic up there.
So you've got to ask the most brilliant question of all.
No pressure.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm Nicholas. I'm a first-year graduate student at the McCourt School of Public Policy, and I'm from New York City. And my question is for both of you, which is, do you think that the AI replacing entry-level positions will kind of create like a talent doom cycle where we accidentally stop creating experts because we're not investing in these entry-level workers so that they can become experts in their fields?
No.
No? Okay.
And I think what'll happen is AI is developing fast enough that it'll develop fast enough to fill any gaps.
I just worry, when I hear folks talking about building millions of robots, and at the same time saying they want to rebuild manufacturing in America, for example. You can rebuild manufacturing in America, but you're not going to have workers doing the work. And I worry, point that Dr. Hinton made earlier in the program, how do people going to get an income to buy the products that are being sold? And in terms of AI in the world that you are living in, I do worry very much that if entry-level jobs are not going to be there for you, how do you move up and progress up the ladder? So it is a real concern. Let me, if I might, Mo, just ask the people here. Just raise your hand. Let me see how to frame this question. Do you see, or it'll be, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. The first one is, for your own lives as young people, do you see AI as a positive development for your future? Raise your hand. Okay. Same question. Are you concerned about it being a negative impact on your future? Wow. Okay, most of the hands went up when they go. I would tell you this, and Dr. Hinton, where I became, I'm not even on any of the committees in Congress that deal with this stuff, but I got involved. I went around the country recently, and I was in Davenport, Iowa, and speaking before a working class audience. And in the course of a speech, I said, I'm just curious, and I asked the same exact question as I asked you. It's a working class audience. And I said, tell me, do you think AI and robotics is going to be a positive development for you? In a room of about 2,500 people, 2 hands went up. So I think among working class people, there is a legitimate and real, and I think based on reality, concern about what AI will do. And I'm hearing that in this room from many of you as well.
Senator and Professor, I want to ask each of you to share any final thoughts you have. But one question I'd ask you to weave in to your final thoughts. What does the average person do, right? What can these students do to prepare for everything you've been talking about?
I think in many ways that question, Mo, goes beyond AI. It really is a political question. And as we have said a dozen times, AI is neither good nor bad. It depends on who benefits and how it is used. Right now in this country, you are living in what I refer to as an oligarchic form of society, where a small number of very powerful people who are moving aggressively in the area of AI, but they were powerful before they did that, have enormous control over the economy and the political life of this country through their ability. Musk, for example, contributed $270 million to make Trump the president. So it is not only AI, it is not only climate change, it's not only the economy, it's not only healthcare. You are living in the richest country in the history of the world. And if we had a rational system designed to improve life for all people, there are extraordinary things that we could be doing. AI is going to make us wealthier. Yes, education could be free from childcare to graduate school. Yes, we could have universal health care. Yes, we could lead the world in transforming our energy system. Yes, we could build the units of affordable and low-income housing that we need. This is not utopian, radical ideas. We could do it if you have a government that is concerned about the needs of ordinary people. If you have a government concerned and dominated by the rich, they will get tax breaks. They will get deregulation. They will be able to produce more carbon emissions, etc. So the real question to me is a fundamental political question. And we need your generation, and we're seeing progress, I got to tell you, all over the country, standing up and creating a government that works for all of us and not just the big money interest. That, to me, is the issue.
Professor, for those of us that are not programmers or engineers, what can we do to get ready?
What I have to say is basically what Bernie said.
Okay. I can't thank each of you enough for joining us tonight and kickstarting this conversation. Not that it needed to be kickstarted. Students here are coming into our office and many others talking and asking and thinking about AI on a daily basis. I want to thank the student volunteers from GU Politics, as well as from the Computer Science and Massive Data Institute programs who helped us put this together tonight. But most importantly, even more importantly than thanking these two, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight, sharing part of your evening, and asking such great questions and engaging. Thank you all very much. Have a great night.